here. As you can imagine, my audience is a bit frustrated with the 8 Senate Democrats who appear to have caved when it comes to this government shutdown. What do you say to people who feel like right now, considering the big wins we had last week, that the Democrats appear to be weak and didn't really ensure that our healthcare was saved?
Yeah, so first of all, I'm going to say that I can appreciate the frustration that anyone, whether they're one of your listeners or not, has as it relates to what took place with the 8 Senate Democrats. I will say, though, by a large majority, there are more of us that have stood against what is taking place in this administration than those that have folded for what this administration wants to do. So I just want y'all to keep that in mind. I want you to also keep in mind that this is a team sport. And so it does make it difficult when it seems like the team is not on the same page. Obviously, I still have to deal with a vote today, actually, a series of votes today. And so this fight is not over. I can tell you that I am an absolute no, because there is no reason that we should be bending over to basically give Donald Trump yet another win. We know that our voters most likely were not his voters, number one. Number two, we also know that we're standing on the right side of history. We know that we are actually fighting harder for so many people that voted for him than he is fighting for them. And number three, I don't think that removing the temporary pain is really what we should have been evaluating. We should have been evaluating, or they should have been evaluating, the long term pain that is about to be inflicted. And while we should not be in the business of evaluating if one pain is better than another, or even dishing out pain as elected officials, I want people to understand this is why it's so important that you vote, because you should never have people in office that are really dishing out hate and harmful policies. But that's all we're getting out of this administration. And people were finally starting to see how much Donald Trump truly hates not just Democrats, but he hates anybody that's not like him: old, rich, white, male, and straight. That is what he does. He definitely has a significant disdain for people that are of the working class. And it is so sad because the working class overwhelmingly put him into office.
Do you buy Marjorie Taylor Greene's mild transformation? Do you buy it?
No, not at all. Listen, here's the deal. Marjorie, AOC and I have a difference of opinion about the Senate race and Marjorie, but we both look to that as part of kind of what's spurred this new change of heart, right? I personally believe that because there's not been a Republican that has really emerged as kind of having the ability to take out Ossoff in Georgia, who's up right now, what she's trying to do is better position herself. Her polling was really bad when it came down to the general election in Georgia against Ossoff. So definitely a Democrat's dream to have Marjorie be the one that goes up against Ossoff. And so it was for that reason that Donald Trump was like, nah, girl, sit down. Like, I'm not supporting you to run for Senate, because she didn't have a pathway. But now that, this plain, I don't even remember his name, to be perfectly honest, this other random kind of Republican member of the House, he decided that he was going to run. He launches his campaign. No one in his campaign realizes that they didn't even spell Georgia correctly. So basically, it was a failure to launch. So I think that Marjorie has seen an opportunity for her to hopefully come in and possibly be the nominee and be one that can be successful. So I think this is about the Senate run. There is recent reporting that came out from Daily Mail, I think, that said that she is eyeing a presidential run in 2028. Either way, she has decided to flip the script because she's decided that she wants out of the House and she wants elevation, whether that is to the Senate or whether it's to the presidency or whether it's to both. In fact, we just recently saw that there was new polling that came out in which she jumped over DeSantis and some others. So she's obviously making the headway because people are deciding that they want to be believers. But as Maya Angelou has stated historically, right? When somebody shows you who they are, believe them the first time.
I wanted to ask you, I'm in New York, so of course the Mondani election. Uh, you, Rep. Al Green, Ayanna Pressley, so many of y'all I really love. I'm curious to know, what do you think about the Democratic Socialists? I know you haven't been put in that socialism category. What do you think of that faction of the Democratic Party? Because when I see some of their platforms, it reminds me of what other Democrats say, right? Including y'all who are a bit more progressive, but I don't see y'all get put in that socialism category. What do you think of that faction of the Democratic Party?
Yeah, so here's the deal. I think that some of us don't get put into that category because we don't espouse to be, um, DSA. And I'm not really sure how many of our members have been endorsed by DSA. I know that there's been some on and off endorsements of various members, and I will say that I think one reason that some members don't necessarily associate with DSA specifically is because of some of the other issues that people have with Democrats as a whole, where there seems to be purity tests, right? It's like you got to do all these things, otherwise you get kicked out, right? We know that DSA has gone back and forth with their endorsements about with AOC, right? And I really don't subscribe to really very many titles. I never want anyone to try to put me into a box because I represent down in Texas, right? So there are Democrats in certain parts of the country that don't really believe that guns should be anywhere. And I am a licensed gun toting Texan, right? So but at the same time, I'm a progressive. So do I believe in red flag laws? Yes, I do. Do I believe that we should have gun safety laws and all the things? Yes, I am there for all the things, right? At the same time, I'm a Texan. So I don't really believe in putting myself into a box. And I believe that people should be forced to do their research on individual members instead of believing that I can tag any and every person with this, because we all have our little things that make us different. Now, with that being said, do I believe in universal healthcare, especially in a moment like this? Absolutely, right? Do I believe that we should have fair wages, livable wages? I do. Do I believe in just basic like humanity and dignity, right? And that the federal government should be engaged in making sure that people in this country can realize the American dream, whether they were born here or whether they got here as soon as they could, right? Which it is what makes America unique. You should be able to go from rags to riches in this country, right? And right now, we have a government that is absolutely trying to make it to where we have a caste system. And once you are in that particular caste, there is no upward elevation. There is this idea of you either are born into it or not. And that's not who we are in this country. So I will always continue to fight for opportunities, whether they are education, whether they are funding for whatever startups people want to have, whether it's just a matter of being able to access capital so that you can start to build generational wealth by buying homes. I believe in equal opportunity for all, no matter what zip code you were born into. I can remember, and you brought up Ayanna Pressley, who was like a big sister to me.
Yeah.
I brought up AOC, who is also a very good dear friend. I loved Ilhan Omar. I can go down the list. But I remember when I first was running and people kept saying, are you going to quote unquote join the squad? And I was like, I'm not really sure if they have like a membership process. Like, does this look like when I like join my sorority? But I was like, I don't want anyone to assume that they know who I am just because they put me into a box. So I've always avoided those kind of smaller labels.
Hmm. At our town hall, I can't recall if it was May or June, but it was in May or June or so. You said that you thought it was BS, this idea that Trump will run in 2028. You said, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Do you still feel that way? I don't know
Yeah.
if I feel that way at this point. You still feel that way?
I do. I don't think
Okay.
that he's planning on running. If you recall, he said that if you vote for me, you'll never have to vote again.
Right.
Do I believe that he plans to be president in 2028? I do. It is one of those reasons that I am seriously considering Senate earlier than later, because I don't know what elections will look like in 4 years, if we will even have them. So I don't want to sound like I should be wearing a tin hat, but let me explain to you some of my concerns. Number one, they have consistently said over and over and over that he is going to be president in 2028, and they've not revealed exactly how. But what we do see is we've seen him send these troops into our cities. We've seen him threaten using martial law. We know that he's consistently trying to start a war wherever he can, an international war. You combine that with the fact that when Zelensky was in his office in the Oval, I believe right after he had Zelensky in the office, but during the visit, he said something like, Zelensky is a dictator. He's not had an election, right? Well, when bombs are falling, you normally don't have elections. So I do think that he is stirring the pot, whether it's domestically or whether it's internationally, because he, in his mind, is going to try to declare that we are in war. He came in saying it, right? He said we were being invaded by Venezuela, right? So he said that he wanted to invoke the Enemy Aliens Act, right? To be able to start just throwing people out of this country. He is doing all of this chaotic stuff, both domestically and internationally, because I believe that he is going to declare that we cannot have elections because we are in the middle of war.
Oh, so I see. You don't think he'll run for re-election. You think he'll just try and stay in office.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes.
Wow. Wow. And when you saw those wins in Jersey, and you broke the news on the Reed Daniel Favor show here on Urban View, in Jersey, in Mississippi, did that encourage you more about this possible run for Senate in Texas? That must have been a good sign, right?
It was a great sign. The race that most people talk about in Texas is the Beto race. The Beto race was
Yeah.
in 2018. That was a backlash year for Trump. So we're in a similar stance. We're in a backlash year for Trump, right? Backlash midterm. And we may equally have a candidate on the other side that is just as bad, if not worse than Cruz. I would argue that Kim Paxton is worse than Cruz because Kim Paxton for sure has been documented as being a creep in so many ways, whether it is his wife coming after him or whether it's his actual impeachment that did not ultimately result in a conviction in the Senate. In addition to the fact that he just doesn't have the profile that Ted Cruz has. So his ability to raise money is not quite as high as Ted Cruz's. So he's a lot more vulnerable of a candidate. We know that the Republican Senate committee is very nervous about his candidacy to the extent that they are investing in the primary to try to take him down and to boost John Cornyn. And they are the ones that have declared that this is a battleground seat. It's not the Democrats. I don't know that the Democrats are really paying that much attention to it, right? It is the Senate Republican Democrat or the Senate Republicans that are declaring that there is something there. So I say all that to say that, yes, that absolutely helps to make me believe that the mood, no matter if you're in deep red parts of Virginia, deep red parts of Mississippi, deep red parts of Georgia, I mean, the entire state of Georgia ended up going blue. So I know the numbers. I know that we're a majority minority state. I know that Latinos are starting to regret their vote, specifically in Texas. Number still isn't as high as it should be, but 1/5 of those Latinos that voted for Donald Trump regret that vote, and they have been vocal about it. I think that there's others that just haven't been vocal about it. So the question is, how do you get it done? And can you build an additional kind of coalition of people to actually get it over the hump? We've never had a candidate that walks in with name ID. We've always had to spend a lot of money to get it up. My name ID is already really high in the entire state. It's almost as high as those that have been elected, like John Cornyn. John Cornyn has been elected since the 90s statewide. And I saw a poll that only had me 6 points down as it relates to my name ID. And I've never even run statewide in the state of Texas. So that's number one. Number two, I am an out of the box candidate. And so that means that I do things differently. So running the same campaign where you're going around the state, you're doing a rally here and there, I don't think that that's enough. I think that we've got to dig a little deeper. And I think that I can run a unique campaign while also building upon the coalition of who makes Texas, Texas, getting those Black folk out, considering the fact that we have the largest African American population in the country, knowing that Beto only lost by a little over 200,000 votes, and knowing that we have over 4 million African American Texans alone, and seeing how I consistently perform really high with African Americans and young people, and even Latinos. In a recent poll that came out last week, it had that Beto performed the best amongst Latinos. Beto is not running, but I performed the second best amongst Latinos in the state of Texas of all the Democrats that are considering running. So I think that I still have a lot of leeway to go, and a lot of growth that I hopefully could end up making as it relates to the Latino community too.